In the heart of Zoran Prime, the tallest buildings touched the clouds. Ships flew between glass towers, and people in fine suits talked about numbers and credits. Among them walked a man named Miran. He was not dressed in fine clothes. His jacket had patches and his shoes were worn out. But his eyes held a fire that could not be ignored. Miran entered the Galactic Bank of Zoran. The inside was grand. The floor was shiny like a mirror, and the walls were made of glowing crystal panels. Around him, rich men and women sat on velvet chairs, sipping from golden cups. No one noticed Miran as he walked to the front desk. "I want to speak to the loan manager," Miran said. The lady at the desk looked him up and down. She smiled, but not kindly. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "No, but I have an idea that will change this galaxy," Miran replied with calm confidence. The lady's smile faded. She pressed a button and whispered something. Moments later, a tall man in a silver suit appeared. His name was Director Velrain, the head of loan approvals. His eyes were sharp, and his voice was cold. "What is this about, young man?" Velrain asked, standing with his arms crossed. "I need a loan to fund a deep space mining expedition," Miran explained. "I've found a location that could hold ancient resources, gold, solarium, maybe more." Velrain raised an eyebrow. "Do you have a company, investors, a working ship?" "I have a ship. Old, but it flies. I don't have investors." "That's why I'm here," Miran said. A few other bankers gathered around, listening. They began to whisper and chuckle. One of them, a younger man named Torvis, leaned in and said loudly, "We get people like you every week. Dreamers, storytellers. You think you'll stumble upon treasure and become rich? The galaxy doesn't work like that." Miran stood straight. "Everything big starts with a dream," the bankers laughed. Loud and sharp, Velrain motioned for Miran to follow him into his office. The room was large, with a window that showed the city sky. Velrain sat behind a polished desk while Miran stood. "Listen," Velrain began. "Mining expeditions are funded by corporations, not by men in patch jackets. Do you know how many ships vanish in deep space chasing myths? Hundreds. We do not fund fairy tales, Miran. It's not a fairy tale." "I have a map," Miran said, placing a small dataship on the table. Velrain didn't even look at it. He waved his hand dismissively. "Even if you had a map, you don't have the resources. Mining equipment, skilled crew, cargo haulers. A dream without a plan is just noise." "You are a fool, Miran." Miran's fists clenched. But he smiled, not with anger, but with quiet strength. "I didn't come here to beg. I came to offer you a chance to be part of something that will change history. If you can't see that, it's your loss," Miran said. Velrain leaned back in his chair, laughing. "Get this man out of my office." 2 security guards appeared, but Miran walked out on his own. As he passed the bankers, he heard more whispers. "Fool, poor man chasing stars. He'll be back, asking for work cleaning ships." Miran said nothing. He walked out of the Grand Bank, back into the busy streets of Zoran Prime. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and gold. Miran looked up, his eyes not on the towers, but beyond them into space. He knew they wouldn't understand. Bankers only believed in numbers, not in dreams. But Miran was not a man who gave up because of a few laughs. He walked through narrow streets, away from the rich zones, into the old parts of the city. There, in a small workshop filled with star maps and broken navigation tools, lived Eldro, Miran's old mentor. Eldro was once a star cartographer. He had traveled more systems than any banker could name. His beard was long, his eyes were kind but sharp. "Miran," Eldro greeted. "I saw your face on the bank's public monitor. Seems they found their next joke." Miran smiled. "Let them laugh. I need your help, Eldro. It's time we looked at that map again." Eldro's eyes lit up. He walked to an old drawer and pulled out a metal case. Inside was a thin, ancient star map. It was half burnt, but the symbols were still visible. People say this is a myth, Eldro said, but we both know myths are just truths forgotten. Miran nodded. We're going to find the precursor vault. Eldro laughed, but it was a warm laugh, not mocking. Then let's prepare, boy. They call you a fool now, but soon they'll call you something else. Miran felt his heart beat faster. The journey ahead would be dangerous. He had no army, no corporation backing him. Just an old ship, a few trusted friends, and a half-burnt map. But he had something the bankers would never understand. Belief. As night fell, the city lights of Zoran Prime shone bright. But somewhere beyond, in the endless sea of stars, waited a treasure that would make those lights look small. The night was quiet in the old district of Zoran Prime. Neon signs flickered, and the streets were empty except for Miran and Eldro. Inside Eldro's small workshop, the air smelled of old paper and machine oil. On the table between them lay the half-burnt star map, its ancient symbols glowing faintly. Eldro pointed at a mark near the edge of the map. This is the Kalos Drift, a dead star field. Ships avoid it because the gravity there is unstable. But see this pattern? He traced a shape that looked like a spiral. It matches the path of a hidden wormhole. The old stories said the precursors built their vaults where no one could reach them. This is where we must go. Miran's eyes shone with excitement. And no one has tried this path before? Many have tried, Eldro said, but they didn't have the full map. They went in blind. We have the key. Miran leaned back in his chair. He knew what needed to be done. He had a ship, though old and scarred. He had Eldro's knowledge. But they needed a crew who would believe in the impossible. Eldro, I need to gather a team. People who don't care about bankers' laughs. Eldro smiled. I know just the people. The next morning, Miran and Eldro visited the iron dockyards, a place where old ships came to be repaired or forgotten. Workers with grease-covered hands moved between ships, fixing engines and welding hulls. Near a broken cargo hauler, a woman was giving orders to a group of workers. Her name was Lena, a ship mechanic known for fixing ships no one else could. She was tough, sharp-eyed, and had no love for rich bankers. Lena. Eldro called. She turned, wiping her hands on a rag. Eldro, what brings you here? Looking to fix another flying coffin. Miran stepped forward. We're looking for someone who can keep a ship alive in the worst of space. Lena raised an eyebrow. What's the job? We're going to find a precursor vault, Miran said. Lena chuckled. You and every other fool. Miran smiled. We have a map. Lena's smile faded. She looked at Eldro, who gave a small nod. She knew Eldro didn't joke about space legends. I'm in, Lena said. But you'll need more than me. They found their next crew member at a small docking bay. Joran, a pilot known for flying through asteroid fields blindfolded, was sitting on a crate, eating a simple meal. Joran. Miran greeted. If this is about a safe job, I'm not interested, Joran replied. It's not safe. It's dangerous. Probably insane. But it's real, Miran said. Joran grinned. Now you're speaking my language. Count me in. By the end of the day, Miran had a small crew. Eldro as navigator, Lena as engineer, Joran as pilot, and a few others who believed in adventure more than safety. That night, they gathered at Miran's ship, the Starfire. It was an old freighter with scars from many battles. The paint was chipped, and one of the engines coughed when it started. But it was solid, and it was home. This is our ship? Lena asked, looking at the Starfire. It's not pretty. But it'll fly, Miran said. Lena smirked. Good, I don't like pretty ships. They break too easy. They loaded supplies, food, water, repair tools, and a few mining drones. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. As the crew worked, Eldro sat in the cockpit, studying the map. "This wormhole route is tricky," Eldro said. "We'll have to pass through gravitor rifts. If we get pulled in, it's over." Joran whistled. "Sounds fun." Miran stood at the front of the ship, looking at the stars above the city. He knew the bankers were still laughing somewhere. But soon, they would hear his name again. The next morning, the Starfire lifted off from the dockyard. As it rose, the city of Zoran Prime became smaller beneath them. Joran, with a wide grin, pushed the ship into open space. "Next stop, the Kolos Drift." He said that space was endless and quiet. The Starfire moved through the darkness, its engines humming steadily. The crew gathered in the small common room, checking their equipment. "This mission is madness," said Bryn, a cargo specialist, "but it feels right." Miran nodded. "We're doing what no one else dares. That's how history is made." As they neared the Kolos Drift, space began to change. The stars ahead looked twisted, like reflections in moving water. The ship's sensors started to beep. With warnings, "Gravitational waves increasing," Eldro announced. "Stay sharp, Joran." Joran's hands danced over the controls. "Sharp as a blade, old man." The ship trembled as invisible forces pulled at it. Space here was not calm. It shifted and bent. Miran felt his stomach twist, but he kept his eyes on the screen. "There!" Eldro pointed. On the display, a spiral-shaped pattern appeared, a match to the one on the map. "That's our path," Miran said. Joran adjusted the ship's course. The Starfire moved closer to the spiral. The ship groaned as the forces around it tried to pull it apart. Lights flickered, and Lena's voice came over the comms. "Engines are holding, but not for long. Push through," Miran ordered. The crew held their breath as the ship entered the spiral. The stars outside vanished, replaced by swirling colors of blue and green. For a moment, it felt like they were floating in a dream. Then, with a sudden jolt, the ship broke through. On the other side, space was calm. Before them lay a dead star system with planets that looked like frozen marbles. But deep beneath one of those planets, their scanners picked up a strange signal. "That's it," Eldro said, his voice full of wonder. "The precursor vault is there," Miran smiled. "The bankers called us fools. Now we'll see who the real fools are." The dead star system was silent. No comets passed by, no solar winds blew. It was like a forgotten graveyard in space. The Starfire floated slowly, its lights scanning the cold planets. "There's no life here," Bryn said, watching the empty space through the window. "No life," Eldro agreed. "But there is something else. Look." He pointed to the scanner screen. A red dot blinked near a planet with a cracked surface. The signal was faint, but it was there, a rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat. "That's the vault," Eldro said softly. Miran leaned closer. "How far below the surface?" "Deep," Eldro answered. "Very deep. And there's a problem. The planet is sitting in a gravity well," Lena frowned. "Gravity well? How strong?" "Strong enough to pull us in if we're not careful," Eldro warned. "That's why no one's been able to reach it." Joran grinned. "Well, no one except U.S. Miran knew this was the moment their journey truly began. The bankers had laughed at him, called him a fool. But now he stood on the edge of history. "Prepare the ship for descent," Miran ordered. The crew got to work. Lena reinforced the ship's hull with extra stabilizers. Bryn secured all loose cargo. Joran double-checked the thrusters. "This gravity well will try to crush us," Lena explained. "The ship will groan, but if we keep our speed steady, we can ride the pull down safely." Miran nodded. "We've come this far. We're not turning back." The Starfire positioned itself above the cracked planet. From the cockpit window, they could see massive cracks running across its surface like scars. Bright flashes of light blinked from deep within those cracks, as if the planet itself was alive. Engaging descent thrusters, Joran announced. The ship shuddered as it began its slow fall into the gravity well. Outside, the stars twisted. The pull of the planet was stronger than anything they had faced before. Adjusting stabilizers, Lena said through clenched teeth. She's fighting me. The ship creaked, metal groaning as if it might tear apart. Alarms beeped loudly. Bryn checked the cargo hold. Everything's holding for now, but we need to move fast. Suddenly, the ship lurched to the side, compensating. Joran shouted, pulling the controls sharply. Eldro's eyes were locked on the scanner. We're almost at the vault signal. Just a little further. As the ship got closer, the cracks in the planet's surface became visible through the front window. They were deep, dark, and wide enough to swallow a city. One of those cracks had a faint glow, a hidden entrance. There! Miran pointed. Joran adjusted the course. The Starfire dipped into the largest crack, the gravity pressing harder with each second. The walls of the crack were sharp and jagged, like the teeth of a giant beast. We have to go manual from here, Joran said. Auto-nav won't work in this mess. Miran and Joran worked together, guiding the ship through the narrow path. The engine strained, but they kept moving forward. Finally, after a tense few minutes, they reached a cavern. It was massive, with walls made of smooth, black stone. In the center stood a structure that didn't belong, a giant metal gateway, shaped like an arch with alien symbols glowing softly. That's it, Eldro whispered. The entrance to the precursor vault. The ship landed gently near the gateway. The crew let out a collective breath of relief. Status report, Miran said. Ship's holding, but she's tired, Lena replied. We won't have long. Before the gravity crushes us. Then we move fast. Bryn, grab the drones, Lena, Joran with me. They suited up and exited the ship. The gravity was heavy, making every step feel like a struggle. But their eyes were fixed on the gateway up close. The alien symbols moved like liquid light, shifting and changing. Miran reached out, his gloved hand hovering over the surface. Careful, Eldro warned through the Miran touched the gateway. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols glowed brighter. The ground beneath them rumbled. The gateway opened slowly, revealing a long tunnel filled with soft, golden light. Drones, move in, Miran commanded. Bryn launched the small drones. They floated into the tunnel, scanning for traps. The crew watched the live feed on their wrist displays. The tunnel was smooth, with walls made of the same black stone as the cavern. No traps triggered, it's clear. Let's go, Miran said. They entered the tunnel. The air inside was strange. It didn't feel stale or ancient. It was like the vault had been waiting for them. As they walked, the walls began to show images, holograms of alien cities, ships, and strange creatures. The precursors, Eldro said with awe. We're walking in their memory. At the end of the tunnel, a door stood. Unlike the gateway, this door was made of solid gold. It had no handle, no lock. But in the center was a round indentation, just the size of a hand. Miran stepped forward and placed his hand on the indentation. The door responded instantly. It slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a massive chamber filled with golden light. Inside were stacks of gold ingots, each as big as a man's chest. Strange alien machines lined the walls, humming with power. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, holding a crystal that pulsed with energy. The crew stood frozen. This is beyond anything I imagined, Bryn whispered. Lena ran her hand over a stack of gold. We're looking at more than just gold. Those machines, they're made of solarium. This is worth more than planets. Miran's heart pounded. They had done it. They had found the precursor vault. All the laughter, the insults, the doubt from the bankers, it didn't matter now. Start scanning everything, Miran ordered. We're not leaving a single piece behind. But as they began their work, Eldro's voice came through the urgent. Miran, the gravity well is increasing. We have limited time before this place collapses. Miran looked at the treasures around him, then at his crew. Then we work fast, he said. Let's make history. The precursor vault was alive with golden light. The walls hummed, and the air felt electric. Mountains of gold ingots stood neatly in rows, and strange alien machines blinked with soft blue lights. Every breath the crew took felt heavy, not from the gravity, but from the weight of their discovery. This is it, Miran whispered. This is what we came for. But there was no time to celebrate. Eldro's voice came over the coms, tense and urgent. Miran, the planet's gravity is shifting. The well is deepening. You must hurry. Miran turned to his team. Lena, Bryn, load the ingots into the drones. Joran, help Eldro keep the ship ready. We don't have much time. Lena nodded and started attaching magnetic clamps to the gold stacks. Bryn activated the cargo drones, which floated and began lifting the heavy ingots with ease. As they worked, Miran's eyes were drawn to the pedestal in the center of the chamber. Upon it sat a glowing crystal sphere, pulsing with light like a heartbeat. What is this? Miran murmured. Eldro's voice crackled in his ear. That's a precursor core. It's not just a power source. It's a data archive, a key to their technology. That's the real treasure. Miran knew they had to take it. He reached out and gently lifted the core. The moment his hands touched it, the entire chamber seemed to awaken. The lights grew brighter, and a low hum turned into a deep vibration. Eldro, what's happening? Miran asked. The vaults. Security systems have activated, Eldro replied. You've triggered something. Suddenly, from the shadows at the edges of the chamber, guardian drones began to rise. They were smooth, black spheres with red glowing eyes. Silent but deadly, they floated toward the crew. Company incoming. Bryn shouted. Lena grabbed a pulse tool, originally meant for mining, but now it would serve as a weapon. Let's see how you like this, she shouted, firing a pulse wave at the nearest drone. The drone shuddered and fell, but more replaced it. Miran, we can't fight them all. Joran yelled through the com. Miran looked at the drones carrying the gold. Bryn, get the drones moving back to the ship. Lena, cover them. I'll handle the core. Bryn nodded and commanded the cargo drones to fly towards the ship, carrying their heavy loads through the tunnel. Lena fired pulse after pulse, knocking back the guardian drones that tried to block their path. Miran, clutching the glowing core, ran towards the tunnel entrance. The floor beneath him began to crack as the gravity shifts grew stronger. The vault was collapsing. Move now. Eldro's voice screamed in his ear. As they raced through the tunnel, the walls began to tremble. Pieces of stone fell from above. The guardian drones followed, relentless, but the narrow tunnel made it harder for them to move in numbers. Almost there. Joran's voice echoed. The crew burst out of the tunnel into the main cavern where the Starfire waited, engines hot and ready. The cargo drones were already loading the gold into the ship's hold. Lena fired one last pulse wave, hitting the tunnel entrance. The energy blast caused a small cave-in, blocking the drones from following. Let's go, Miran shouted. They rushed aboard the Starfire. The ship groaned under the weight of the cargo, but she was still alive. Initiating emergency launch, Joran announced as he jumped into the pilot's seat. The ship lifted off the cavern floor. The gravity well pulled at them like an invisible hand trying to drag them back down. The engines screamed, pushing against the crushing force. Come on, girl. Fly, Lena muttered, watching the engine readouts. The Starfire shook violently as it climbed through the crack-lined path. Outside, the planet's surface was breaking apart. Explosions of dust and rock filled the air as the vault below began to collapse. We're not going to make it, Bryn said, gripping his seat. We will, Miran said firmly. We didn't come this far to die now. Joran's hands were steady on the controls. He found the narrow path they had taken before, but this time, the gravity was twice as strong. The ship's alarm screamed, warning of hull stress. "Eldro, I need a course." Joran yelled. LDRO, watching the sensors, spotted a weak point in the gravity field. "Adjust course by 2 degrees, now." Joran followed the command, and the ship jolted to the side. The shift was risky, but it worked. The pressure lessened slightly. "Full thrust," Miran ordered. The engines roared. The ship climbed faster, the cracks narrowing behind them. The gateway to the vault collapsed in a cloud of debris. But ahead, the crack opened into space, a small circle of light. "There's our exit." Joran shouted. With a final surge of power, the Starfire burst out of the crack into open space. The crew cheered as the gravity well's pull faded. Behind them, the planet shook violently. Pieces of its surface crumbled inward as the vault collapsed, burying its secrets forever. "We made it," Lena said, her voice filled with relief. Miran looked at the cargo hold display. It showed stacks of gold ingots and the glowing core, now safely aboard. "We have it all," Miran said with a smile. "Gold, solarium, and the precursor core. Enough to change everything." Joran steered the ship away from the dead system. The crew gathered in the common room, exhausted but victorious. "They called you a fool, Miran," Bryn said, laughing. "I'd like to see their faces now." Miran smiled, but his eyes were thoughtful. He knew the real challenge was just beginning. The bankers, the corporations, they wouldn't welcome this victory. They would fear it, but fear was good. Fear meant he had their attention. "Let's set course back to Zoran Prime," Miran said. "It's time we pay the bankers a visit." The Starfire glided through space, heading back to Zoran Prime. Inside the ship, the air was filled with quiet excitement. The cargo hold was packed with gold ingots and solarium crates. But the real treasure, the glowing precursor core, sat safely in a reinforced container. Miran stood in the cockpit, watching the city grow larger on the display screen. The last time he came here, the bankers had laughed at him. They had called him a fool. Now he was coming back to prove them all wrong. "Prepare for landing at the galactic trade dock," Eldro said, guiding the ship through the busy traffic. Lena leaned back in her seat. "I wonder if the bankers will recognize you, Miran." Miran smiled. "Oh, they'll recognize me. They'll remember every word they said." As the Starfire landed at the dock, a team of galactic trade inspectors was already waiting. They were officials who verified cargo and controlled trade records. Their job was to stop smugglers and cheaters. But today, they were about to witness history. "State your cargo and purpose," one inspector said, scanning the ship's ID. Miran stepped forward confidently. "Miran, captain of the Starfire. We're here to declare a vault discovery. Precursor. Artifacts, gold, solarium fully documented." The inspector raised an eyebrow. "A vault discovery? You understand false claims come with heavy punishment?" "I'm aware," Miran said, handing over the dataship containing the scan reports, vault location logs, and visual recordings of their expedition. The inspector inserted the chip into his scanner. As the images appeared, stacks of gold, alien machines, the glowing core, his face changed from doubt to shock. "Wait here," the inspector said, rushing to make a come call. Minutes later, a group of high-ranking trade officials arrived, their faces serious. Behind them, Director Velrun, the same banker who had mocked Miran, appeared with a smug smile. "What's going on here?" Velrun asked, pretending not to recognize Miran. "I believe you know me, Director Velrun," Miran said calmly. "The fool who came to your office asking for a loan." Velrun's eyes narrowed. He remembered. The trade officials finished reviewing the dataship. One of them, a woman with silver badges, turned to Velrun. "Director Velrun, Captain Miran's claim is valid. The cargo hold contains over $30 billion credits worth of gold and solarium. The precursor core is of historic importance. Velron's face went pale. 30 billion? That's impossible. The inspectors opened the cargo hold. The bankers, the officials, and dock workers all gathered to see. Rows of gold ingots gleamed under the dock lights. The solarium crates glowed with a soft blue light. The core, secured in its container, pulsed with a living energy. A wave of whispers swept. Through the crowd, he really found a vault. This man, he's richer than most corporations. Is he going to sell it all to the bank? Velron regained his composure and stepped forward. Captain Moran, the Galactic Bank would be honored to assist you in managing this discovery. We can arrange top-level security, storage, and financial services for you. Moran looked at Velron with a cold smile. Ah, so now you want to be part of my fairy tale? Velron's lips tightened, but he said nothing. I came to you for help, Moran continued. You laughed, you called me a fool. Now, I don't need your help. I have my own ship, my own crew, and my own fortune. The crowd's attention was fully on Moran now. Reporters had gathered, cameras flashing. Captain Moran, one reporter asked, what will you do with this wealth? Moran's eyes scanned the crowd. I will build something better than banks. A consortium that supports real explorers, real workers. People who are laughed at because they don't wear fancy suits, but have the courage to dream. Cheers erupted. From dock workers and ordinary citizens. The bankers stood stiff, their faces sour. Velron tried to interrupt. Captain, think carefully. You're speaking of business matters far beyond your understanding. Moran stepped closer. I understand. Enough. I understand that people like you sit in glass towers, mocking those who dare to step outside. I understand that you only believe in power when it wears a suit. But today, power wears patches and grease. The trade officials, sensing the shift in public mood, quickly declared, all findings are officially registered under Captain Moran's ownership. The Galactic Council will oversee the trade agreements. Velron was furious but could do nothing. As the crowd cheered, Moran turned to his crew. This is just the beginning. We didn't find this treasure to become like them. We'll use it to change how this galaxy does business. Lena clapped him on the back. You've shut them up good, Captain, Joran grinned. From fool to legend in one trip. Later that evening, Moran was invited to a special meeting at the council hall. The city of Zoran Prime glittered outside the wide glass walls. Inside, the same bankers who had mocked him now sat quietly, waiting to hear his words. Moran stood before them, no longer a beggar, but a man who held the future in his hands. I will create the Moran Consortium, he announced. A network where explorers, miners, and traders are given fair chances. No more gatekeepers, no more arrogance. The galaxy is big enough for everyone willing to work for it. One banker stood up, trying to smile. Perhaps we can support you in this new venture. Moran's answer was simple. No, you had your chance. The room went silent. The message was clear. The age of the old bankers was ending. A new era was beginning, one where dreams were not mocked, but funded. Back at the Starfire, the crew gathered around a simple table, sharing a quiet meal. You did it, Moran, Eldro said. You didn't just find gold, you changed the rules. Moran smiled, looking out at the city beyond. They can call me a fool all they want, I'll still win. As the stars blinked above, Moran knew this was only the first chapter of a much bigger journey. The news of Moran's discovery spread like wildfire across Zoran Prime. Every screen, every news channel, every holoboard flashed with headlines. Fool finds $30 billion treasure. Bankers left, speechless as Moran unveils precursor vault. Riches, the rise of the Moran Consortium. For the people of Zoran Prime, Moran became a symbol of hope. For the powerful bankers, he became a problem. Inside the high glass towers of the Galactic Bank, the air was thick with panic. Director Velrun and his circle of elite bankers sat around a long black table, watching reports flood in. "This is out of control," Velrun said, slamming his fist on the table. "He's turning the workers against us. He's making fools of us." Another banker, a woman named Marvis, spoke with a worried tone. "Worse, he's planning to fund independent mining ventures. If small traders can get support from him, they won't need us anymore." Velrun stood pacing. "We need to crush this before it spreads. The Galactic Bank has ruled trade for a century. One man will not change that." But deep down, they all knew Moran had already changed everything. Outside in the city streets, the mood was different. People cheered when they saw Moran's face on screens. Dock workers, small traders, ship engineers, everyone who had ever been laughed at by the elites felt proud. At a small mechanic shop, a young man said, "Moran is one of us. He didn't wait for permission. He made his own path." In marketplaces, vendors proudly displayed signs, "Supported by Moran Consortium." Meanwhile, in a modest office near the docks, Moran and his crew worked non-stop. Papers, dataships, and holographic plans filled the room. "We've received over 200 applications for mining support," Eldro reported. Small ships, family-run traders, even retired explorers. Lena leaned over a hologram of trade routes. "If we back them, they can reach areas the big corporations ignore. We can set fair prices, cut out the middlemen." Moran nodded. "That's exactly what we'll do." Just then, a message flashed on the main screen. It was from Director Velrun. "Moran," Velrun's face appeared, trying to maintain his cold smile. "I request a private meeting. There are matters we should discuss." Moran's crew looked at him. "It's a trap," Joran said. "He wants to bring you into his circle," Moran smiled. "Let him try." Later that day, Moran entered the Grand Hall of the Galactic Bank. The same place where he had once been mocked now stood silent as he walked in. Bankers watched from the shadows, their faces tight with forced smiles. Velrun greeted him at the entrance. "Captain Moran, what a surprise," Moran chuckled. "Don't act like you didn't call me here, Velrun." They walked to a private meeting room. Luxurious, cold, and full of empty grandeur. "Let's not waste time," Velrun began. "The Galactic Bank is willing to offer you a partnership. We can provide resources, manage your funds, and protect your assets." Moran raised an eyebrow. "You mean you want to control what you failed to stop?" Velrun's smile faltered. "We're offering you power, Moran. Real power, beyond mining, beyond trade. You can be part of the inner circle." Moran leaned forward. "You don't understand, Velrun. I don't want to sit at your table. I'm building a new table." Velrun's face darkened. "You're making enemies, Moran. Powerful ones." Moran stood up, his voice calm but firm. "Good, let them come." Within days, the battle began, but not with weapons. It was a war of influence. The bankers launched media campaigns, trying to paint Moran as reckless, a lucky fool who stumbled upon wealth. They used politicians to propose new regulations aimed at blocking the Moran Consortium. But Moran was ready. He opened the consortium's records to the public. Every transaction, every deal, every promise was made visible. The people saw fairness. The workers saw hope. Even some mid-level traders, tired of the bank's greed, joined Moran's side. "We can't touch him," Marvis said in a bankers' meeting. "Every attack we make makes him stronger. People trust him because he's open. We are not." Velrun's face was red with anger. "Then we buy him, double the offer." But Moran refused every offer. He didn't want their money. He wanted change. At the Central Trade Conference, where the galaxy's top economic leaders gathered, Moran was invited as a guest speaker. The same elites who once ignored him now had no choice but to listen. Moran stood on the stage, wearing his simple jacket, while the crowd in expensive suits watched him with curiosity and fear. "I am not a banker," Moran began. "I am a miner's son, a ship mechanic, a man who was told he didn't belong in rooms like this. But I stand here today because I dared to dream beyond your walls." He paused, looking at the rows of suits. "You've built glass towers to keep people like me out. But glass breaks. The Moran Consortium is not here to replace you. It's here to make you irrelevant." The room was silent. Outside, in the streets, the speech was being broadcast live. Cheers erupted from crowds watching on big screens. Workers waved flags with Moran's logo, a simple star, crossed with a mining pick. After the conference, Velrin realized the truth. The Galactic Bank, once untouchable, was now seen as an old relic. The power was slipping from their fingers. "We underestimated him," Marvis admitted. "He's not playing by our rules." Velrin clenched his fists. "No, he's writing new ones." Back at the Starfire, Moran sat with his crew, watching the city lights below. "You've done it, Captain," Eldro said. "You've humbled the giants." Moran smiled but remained thoughtful. "It's not about humbling them, Eldro. It's about lifting others. If we can do that, the giants will fall on their own." Lena raised a glass. "To fools who don't know when to give up," Joran laughed. "The best kind of fools." They all clinked their glasses. As the stars blinked above, Moran knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy was still full of walls to break and doors to open. But now, people believed it was possible. The city of Zoran Prime was alive with energy. Everywhere people spoke of Moran and his new consortium. Markets were bustling, ships were flying in and out of the docks, and new trade routes were being opened by small traders who once had no chance. Moran stood at the window of the Starfire, looking out at the bright city. His heart was full. The journey that began with a map and a dream had changed not only his life, but the whole galaxy. "Captain," Eldro said, walking into the room, "we've received messages from other systems. Many want to join the consortium." Moran smiled. "Good. The more, the stronger we become." At the heart of the consortium's new headquarters, a large holomap showed the galaxy with blinking lights. Each light marked a ship or a station that was part of Moran's growing network. Lena pointed at one of the blinking lights. "This is the Grax system. It has rare minerals, but no big company wants to go there." Moran nodded. "We'll send mining teams there next. Give small crews a chance to work and earn." Joran laughed. "I never thought I'd see the day when the little traders had more freedom than the giants." Moran's eyes sparkled. "Freedom and fairness. That's the future." But not everyone was happy. The old bankers and big corporations still tried to block Moran's progress. They used political power to create new rules, trying to make the consortiums work harder. One day, Moran received a message from a powerful trader named Colin, a man known for his strong ties with the bankers. "Meet me at the Nebula Station." Colin's message read, "We need to talk." Moran was cautious but agreed. The meeting was set in a busy trade station, surrounded by ships from all over the galaxy. When Moran arrived, Colin greeted him with a polite nod. "I see what you're doing," Colin said. "Breaking old systems, giving power to the small traders. It's impressive," Moran replied. "It's necessary. The old ways only help the few." Colin smiled, but it was not warm. "Change is dangerous, Moran. Not everyone wants it. Some want control." Moran stood firm. "The people want fairness. They want a chance." Colin looked around. "Be careful. The giants you challenge will fight back harder." Moran's answer was simple. "Let them." Back on Zoran Prime, the consortium worked harder. New ships were built, new trade routes opened, and many people found honest work for the first time. At the docks, a young woman named Sina prepared her small cargo ship for a trip. She had been helped by the consortium and now felt hope for her future. Miran watched ships like Sina's and smiled. This was why he fought. One day, Miran received an urgent message. A mining team in the Grax system had sent a distress signal. Their ship was damaged, and they were stranded. Without hesitation, Miran and his crew prepared to launch the Starfire. "We don't leave anyone behind." Miran said that the journey to Grax was rough. The system was full of asteroid fields and dangerous solar storms. Joran flew the Starfire expertly, dodging rocks and energy waves. When they arrived, the stranded crew was on a small broken ship, low on power. Lena quickly set up repairs, while Eldro and Bryn helped with supplies. The rescue was a success. The grateful miners thanked Miran's crew. "This is what the consortium is about," Miran said. "Community, support, and hope." Back at the headquarters, Miran spoke to his growing team. "We have changed the game. But the real victory is in helping people like Sina and that mining team. Our work is not done." The room was filled with determination. Months passed. The Miran consortium grew strong. The old bankers tried one last move. They used a fleet to blockade key trade routes. But Miran was ready. Using small, fast ships and clever tactics, the consortium broke the blockade. The people cheered their victory. The power balance had shifted. The giants no longer controlled the galaxy's trade. In the heart of Zoran Prime, Miran stood before a large crowd. His voice was steady. "We are no longer fools. We are builders, explorers, dreamers. Together, we will make this galaxy a place where anyone can rise." The crowd erupted in cheers. Miran looked at his crew beside him, Eldro, Lena, Joran, and Bryn. Together, they had done the impossible. The story of Miran, the man once humiliated by bankers, had become a legend. Not because of the gold or the core he found, but because he showed that with courage and fairness, even the smallest voice could change the universe.